What's up, Instagram peeps? How you guys doing? Yesterday, if you caught it, was super fun with Doug Evans. We had a great time. It was my first split screen Instagram live conversation, and it was so much fun that I decided to do it again today. It's kind of like doing a podcast remotely with a little easy visual component to it. And because I can't have anyone come to my house right now to do podcasts, I am doing some remote podcasts that I'm going to be sharing over the coming weeks. But this is sort of like a supplement to the RRP. And I wanted to bring on my good buddy InQ. A lot of you guys probably just heard him on the podcast because he's up now. He's fantastic. And that podcast was recorded pre-coronavirus, and I wanted to kind of check in with him and see how he's doing. So I'm going to add him right now. He should be standing by. Yeah, there he is. Cool. In a minute here for an update on all things creativity and poetry from Crosstown in Los Angeles. There he is.
What up?
How you doing, man?
What's up, brother? I'm great, man. How are you? I'm good. You know, it's funny what you just said. Pre-coronavirus. I mean, because there is really now before and after.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
How you feeling?
And I feel good. You know, listen, I'm in an incredibly privileged situation. We have this beautiful home that we live in. I've got all my kids here, and one of our sons, Trapper, his girlfriend is here. And there's plenty of space and nature and clean air. So I have very little to complain about. Also, I'm self-employed and I can still do what I do from the comfort of my home. So frankly, my day-to-day routine is not that changed, which is sort of making me realize that maybe I need to rethink my hermetic lifestyle once this thing lifts. But yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot of people suffering out there right now. There's a lot of pain and a lot of uncertainty and fear and anxiety and I'm in a very lucky place. So I don't know. How are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, what you just said is true. It's a privilege to be able to quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. I mean, I know it's a challenge for a lot of people as well, but we know that we have a roof over our head. We know where the next meal is coming from. A lot of people don't have that certainty right now. And so that's something that I've been reminding myself of, is that everyone is going through a unique set of challenges through this virus, and how I can be supportive, how I can be of service, and how I can also do my own internal work during this time.
Right.
I feel like Mother Nature said, like, no, you're on timeout. Go sit in the corner and think about what you've done.
That's definitely what's going on right now. And we're seeing these news reports coming out about how the air is cleaning and, the ozone holes are shrinking and, the planet is resetting. And the message is pretty loud and clear that the Earth doesn't need us and is frankly much better off without us. And it's pretty remarkable and dramatic that in such a short period of time, we're seeing these kind of climate improvements. And I think that should give us pause and make us sit with that and reflect on, our habits and our addictions and our lifestyle that's, created this situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, what we were doing is clearly unsustainable. This profiting off of the suffering of people and the planet, it's not working. And so, for a person to make a systemic change in their life, they usually have to face some sort of a trauma. And then they have a period of time in that trauma that wakes them up out of their normal routines, where they have an opportunity to make a real shift. And if they do, that shift can last for the rest of their lives. And if they don't, they can fall back asleep again. And sometimes they won't get another chance to have that opportunity for a big shift for another 10 years. And I feel like an individual is like a collective, And this is our collective opportunity to make systemic change. And I hope that we evolve rather than evolve.
I think, you know, while being sensitive to the many people out there who have, you know, perhaps lost their jobs or, you know, might be suffering from this illness right now or have a loved one that is, you know, I have these kind of warring voices in my head. On the one hand, you know, I hear you loud and clear and, you know, 100% that this is this grand opportunity for us all to kind of reflect on both our individual choices and the systemic choices that our culture has made that have led us to this point. And perhaps, you know, kind of congeal us around a more communitarian approach to how we move forward so that we can create more sustainable systems and tread more lightly on the planet and kind of rethink our own, you know, personal daily routines that leave us, you know, kind of separated from our divinity. And yet, on the other hand, there's the other voice that's saying, yeah, but, you know, as soon as this thing is over, humans are going to be scrambling to just get back to normal. Like, how do we get back to the way things were? How can I, you know, book that vacation on the cruise liner and, you know, all the stuff, right? Like, we have this human beings are incredibly resilient, but we also have short memories when it comes to this kind of thing. And my fear is that we'll get to the other side, this will pass, and we will, you know, not learn the lesson that's being presented to us right now.
I think to your point, which is a great point, if that happens and we collectively fall back asleep again, we're going to wake up to the existential crisis of climate change. Because, you know, this is not existential. There will be an end to this for humanity. We will find a vaccine. There is a finish line to the end of it. And by the way, I'm not in any way disregarding the amount of pain and suffering that people are going through, because over 5,000 people have died just in America, and they're not statistics. They're human beings that had people who loved them. They had dreams, they had hopes, they had lives. And oftentimes they had to pass alone, and their families can't even celebrate their life by gathering together and having a funeral. I mean, it really is an unfathomable amount of pain and anxiety and suffering and fear. And it's global. So, you know, I acknowledge it, and I also try to hold both of those truths in the same space at the same time, that this is unbelievably painful. And also, it is an opportunity. And if we go back to normal, we're headed towards, I think, an unavoidable disaster. We have removed ourselves from the ecosystem. We think that we're like the highest form of life, like human beings are the top. We're not. Actually, human beings aren't even the end of the evolution. Life has a mind of its own, you know, like, we're going to continue to evolve. But, you know, if we use everything around us and consume it, and you've been on this for years, man, you've taught me not only by what you've said, but by how you've lived your life. Like, I feel like you've been way ahead of the curve on a lot of these subjects. And we need to catch up.
Yeah, and you know, the gift, the silver lining in all of this is that we are being forced to stop, and we have to sit with ourselves, and that's uncomfortable. You know, I think this came up in our podcast. Some philosopher said, you know, the root of all suffering is man's inability to sit quietly with himself, and I think it's incumbent upon all of us to find the gift in that and to take advantage of it, rather than just scroll mindlessly. You know, I'm glad everybody's tuning in right now, as much people watching, but at the same time, it's important to create distance between ourselves and these technological tools, and to really avail ourselves of this moment where we have the bandwidth to go inward. I mean, your book is literally called, you know, Inquire Within. It's like a manifesto for this moment, you know, like, now is the time to inquire within. And, you know, we recorded our podcast before all of this was happening.
Yeah.
And then we talked like kind of right before it was going up, and you know, it was important to me to kind of contextualize in the introduction, like, listen, we recorded this before, but this is timeless wisdom that is perhaps just as appropriate, if not more appropriate now. And I think there is a bizarre, you know, divine timing in this, that you've created this work of art that can be healing to a lot of people right now, so that they can, you know, grab onto this lifeline and really dive inward to do that, you know, to engage in that process of self-inventory and kind of an honest reckoning with the things in our lives that are working and not working, that are leading us astray, that are not sustainable, so that we can, you know, set in motion, or at least create a plan in this moment of pause to, you know, move forward in a better way. Once, like you said, this is not existential. Once this lifts and we're able to go, you know, venture back out into the world.
Yeah, man, I thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. I mean, it is bizarre, and it's bizarre that, I mean, we wanted to make the branches mirror the roots, but then it's the lungs.
Right.
And it's
yeah,
wild to me,
that's
man.
amazing. Yeah.
You know, I was going around every, you know, where I was doing interviews, I was doing podcasts. I know even on our podcast, I said, you know, the whole thing about inquiring within and finding, you know, the time and space to allow the noise of the modern world to drop away, so you can hear that one internal voice, because that's going to give you your passion and your purpose and tell you where you should go next. And now every person literally on the planet, you know, or, you know, as a generalization, me included, is being asked to inquire within. And, you know, it's difficult to quarantine, but it's a luxury to quarantine. And it's difficult to inquire within, but it's a luxury to inquire within. That's why artists mirror humanity, is because they have the time to have self-exploration. Most people are so busy all of the time, they don't have the time to actually stop and think, because, you know, we're all in survival mode. You know, everything is, you know, oh, this and that and this and the kids and all of those things. So, you know, Mike Posner used to say that he feels like it's his job to go out there and explore externally and internally, and then report back through his art. And this has been, this book is my biggest report back, you know, from the 25 years that I've been writing. And it was medicine for me to write, and I hope that it's medicine for people to read.
I did one of these yesterday with Doug Evans. Your name?
I love Doug,
you know
man.
Doug,
I actually
right?
jumped on for a minute.
Yeah, I know. I saw that, and I was like, oh, InQ's here. And then, like, Doug freaked out. He's like, oh, I love InQ. And he told a story about meeting you and stuff like that. And it was great. You know, he showed me all the sprouting stuff. And, you know, that guy should have his own TV show. He's so entertaining and positive. You know, his energy is incredible. But one of the things that you share with Doug is that both of you guys are in this position where you've spent, you know, over a year, like, putting these books together, and then they're coming out right in this moment where it's just an odd time to be doing any kind of self-promotion whatsoever. Like, it just feels tone deaf and self-serving. And yet what I said to Doug was, like, you have every right to be super proud of what you've created. And, you know, both your book and Doug's books are really helpful in this moment right now. And so, you know, I'm interested in how you're kind of processing, like, this idea that you know, you're supposed to be out kind of, like, you know, talking about your book, and yet at the same time, this is that moment for kind of going inward.
Yeah, I mean, look, I had to go through my own little bit of an ego death. You know, the differences between your expectations and reality, you know, and all the hard work we had put in. You know, we had a mural that was going up in LA. We had a billboard. We had shows in SF in New York and LA. We had 1,000 seats at the Palace we were going to do. We had plenty of other gigs that got canceled. We had, you know, merch that was coming out. You know, there was just so many things that we had created. And I think mostly I wanted to celebrate with my friends and my family and my fans the accomplishment of the book coming out and having a live experience together. And so I had to let go of all of that. And yet I also had this larger macro view, knowing that every single person is going through a unique challenge. Every single person. And I'm very, very lucky to be going through the challenge that I'm going through. And so I think that kept things in perspective. And at this point, I've kind of let it go. When the environment changes, we're all forced to adapt. I mean, if the environment never changed, we would never change. If everything was perfect, you know, why would we change anything? And then when the environment changes, we're forced to adapt. So look at this thing I'm doing with you. I mean, I'm not disregarding anyone's pain or suffering. I'm holding both of those truths in the same space at the same time. But this is a modern crisis. The fact that we can get on this technology and I can connect with you and we can have a conversation, we're basically running our own television station right now.
I know, it's crazy.
It's insane. And we can, like, for every single person that's listening, you could be doing anything in the world right now, hopefully inside, and you're with us, and I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in and listening to us talk. And so I'm sending you love wherever you are. I hope that you're safe. I hope that you're healthy, and I hope that you're happy under these difficult circumstances. And then the last thing I'll say about this is that, you know, I think that this celebrity culture thing, this perfectionism, almost immediately has started to disappear, because we're so used to hero culture where we look up to people or down at people, and we should just look at people. You know, this doesn't have to be perfect. I don't need to say the perfect thing. Look, I haven't even fucking shaved today. You don't even know if I have pants on.
You
I
haven't
do.
shaved. Look at this.
Yeah. I mean, we're just a couple of dudes having a conversation rather than needing to be this like perfect version of ourselves. And I think there's something really beautiful in that, because hopefully people can connect to a deeper, more authentic humanity. I think that we need to find compassion and empathy for each other in this moment now more than ever.
Yeah. Well, the human spirit cannot be contained, and you know, you're seeing the examples of this everywhere. Like, no matter how constrained and quarantined we are, you know, we're hardwired for connection and community. And when forced to, you know, be sequestered in our domiciles, we're finding these new and different ways to try to expand our connections with people. And everybody's seen the, you know, people out on their balconies singing songs, you know, from their apartments in Spain, and you know, everybody's going live on Instagram. It's almost like a, you know, it's a cliche almost, you know, to go live. But you know, I think there's something beautiful about that. It's like, when we're backed into this corner, like, what do? Our instinct is to, like, how do we connect? You know, and if we can't connect in person, we're going to do this. And you know, I've never done. I mean, we're basically doing podcasts right now. Like, I've never done these kind of lives, but you know, the circumstances dictate that we adapt and find new and different ways to connect and you know, hopefully spread a positive message that can be helpful to people, a salve, you know, to you know, treat the wound that we're all, you know, suffering from right now.
Yeah. I used to think that people changed out of curiosity. That was like my main thing. I thought that like humanity had some sort of thing hardwired in their DNA, that curiosity made us ask questions and then try to answer them, even if the answer was to our own detriment. Like, why do we continue to explore AI when there's a distinct possibility that it could mean the end of humanity as we know it? Well, I'm like, well, maybe there's this like curiosity that's in our DNA. And then I realized, no, that's not true. It's bullshit. Why did a single cell organism basically like evolve out of the water onto land? It wasn't curiosity. It was probably some sort of a disaster happened in a cove somewhere. And maybe like it had to evolve in order to survive. And so that's why when the environment changes, we change. And, you know, this isn't specific survival for the two of us, but we're finding, as you said, more ways to connect, more ways to get out of our own box, even though we're kind of, you know, trapped.
Yeah, well, pain is the ultimate motivator. I mean, in my personal experience, like any of the major changes that I've made in my life have been kind of compelled,
Right.
because I was in such a dire state, or there was just no other option, and I was forced to undergo my own evolution. And I can tell you, it wasn't out of curiosity. It was out of like, well, no one else is talking to me. I better figure something else out.
Right,
Or,
exactly.
I'm not going to survive this unless I figure out a new and different way. And
Do you
so
have
having,
anything that
there's
you want to work on during this time that that has come up for you in the last few weeks?
I think, for me, it's grappling with my own ambition. Like I don't like to sit still. Like I want to be on the move, and I want to be climbing and creating. And there's certain things that I can create in this, quieter space. Like I have a book project that I'm working on and all of that. But it's more about like really getting honest with myself about what any of it means. Like what is really important here? And that's forced me to confront my own ego in a more profound way, and to try to get more comfortable with just being, like,
Right.
and not being myself. Like I can't go out, like I don't think it's smart to go out and like train my body really hard right now and wear down my immune system. So it's about letting go of like what I think I should be doing, or whatever direction that I feel like, I should be blazing at the moment, and just allowing myself to breathe and be with myself and be okay with that, rather than thinking about the next thing that I should be tackling or trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think this is an opportunity for everybody to remove all of the self-imposed labels that we've put on our lives. I mean, who are we without this external validation? Who am I if I'm not a poet? Who are you if you can't train? And what is most important to you? Because in the end, we're going to let it all go anyway. I mean, our whole lives, no matter what we build up, we let it all go. And in the very end, we let go of everyone we've ever loved, our bodies, our identities. And so this is the ultimate gym for letting go.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a weird moment last night. I had dental surgery like a couple days ago, so I was laid up with an infection. Yeah, I'm feeling better now, but I was laid up for like 4 days with like a really bad infection.
Yeah.
And then I had the tooth extracted like 3 days ago. And I just think I can bounce back really quickly, and so I went running yesterday. Probably shouldn't have. I probably should have waited another day. And then last night at dinner, I was not feeling good. And I actually had Julie touch my forehead. Like, does it feel hot to you? Like I didn't have an appetite. And I think maybe I just overdid it or something like that. But I had a moment, like not a freak out, but like, wow, what if I have the virus right now? Like, maybe I'm incubating that at the moment. And I went to bed super early and I feel better today. But just that brief, like kind of wrestling with the potential reality of contracting this thing really like reset, help me reset like anything that's important and what's superfluous.
Yeah. Did you come up, did what rose to the surface in that?
That's a good question. Just, I think I live in a state where, I mean, I think maybe this is innately human, but on some level, like we all intellectually know we're going to die, but I think inside all of us, we actually think we're going to somehow elude it. It's not going to happen to us.
So
we don't really confront that reality. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's similar with this virus. Like, yeah, a lot of people are getting it. I see the numbers. I know people who know people that have it, etc. But on some level, like, I wasn't necessarily afraid of getting sick myself, or just felt like I'm healthy, and if I get it, I'll find my way through it. So I think what came up for me is just my, not necessarily a frailty or a fragility, but just the humanness of it all. Like I'm no different than anybody else. And, I very well, despite all the sequestration, I very well may contract this disease, especially if they're saying like 50% of people are going to get it. Like, why would I think I'm not going to be one of those people? So it was just it was kind of a confrontation and an embrace of just, the shared humanity that we all have, that nobody is exempt from this. And this really is something that's touching all of us.
I think that's why in general, like our culture doesn't celebrate like the elderly, because they remind us of our own mortality. So oftentimes we just ignore them and move forward. People don't like to be reminded of their own mortality, but that's the only thing that makes life special, is the fact that we know we're going to lose it. I mean, you can't separate love from loss.
Mm-hmm.
And people get so afraid of loss that they actually limit the amount that they're willing to love. Mm-hmm. And so I think right now, all of us need to be loving ourselves harder, loving the people that we love harder, loving the people that we don't love harder, and finding a way to accept the loss and embrace the love. And I also wanted to say something else. Like, I've battled with depression throughout my life. And I would say poetry has been a really big outlet for me. And, without overly exaggerating it, in many ways, I think it artistically saved my life. And so in some of those darker moments when, I never actually like thought about taking my life specifically, but I definitely had moments where I didn't want to exist anymore. When you're just like, I'm over this thing of being me. You're like, I'm done with that whole thing. And yet I made it through, and I found a lot of things that allowed me to work through my pain and integrate it and alchemize it. And I'm in a better place than I've ever been in my entire life. I'm just happier in every possible department. And I've always been so sad for the people that wound up taking their life, because even if you wanted to kill yourself, if someone tried to kill you, like if you were walking down the street and someone tried to kill you, you would defend yourself. You would either run away, which is a defense, or you would fight them, and you would stand up for your life. And if you survived that situation, you would realize that we do have this innate like will to be alive. That being alive is beautiful. It's an absolute miracle to be here. And we take it for granted 99.9% of the time. And I always thought, if someone who was thinking about taking their life could have that experience of fighting for their life, they might rediscover why this experience is so beautiful, even though it's also ugly.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that reminds me of the people that come into the rooms of 12-step and are struggling with sobriety and who don't make it, and end up back out there. And, I can't tell you how many people I know that have passed away that way, gone to a lot of funerals. And, one person that I knew quite well just died recently.
I'm sorry, man.
And it's, the adage is like, well, you don't leave before the miracle. And the word miracle kind of implies like, this sort of, rainbows and, beautiful string music or something like that. But really what it is just being able to live comfortably in your own skin.
Right.
It's such a struggle for so many people.
Yeah, I think, even now, that's why I was saying that this thing that we're doing, it's so chill. Like we don't have to like put on our personality mask. It's like, who gives a shit? We could just be with each other. And it just takes so much effort to like live up to, someone else's self-image of you or your self-image of yourself. And it just feels so good to just let down the armor and just say, this is who I am, and to experience your life and your voice. And, the more and more layers I remove, the more and more I am able to enjoy reality. And I wish that for other people.
It's the ironic truth of human connection, right? Because we all think we have to put on this performance or, kind of, walk a certain way and hold ourselves out to the world in a certain way in order to be accepted and in order to, make our way and achieve the things that we want to achieve. And in truth, the beauty and the gift comes when you let all of that go and you just make peace with who you are and you develop a comfort level with that. That's distinct from trying to, impress anybody or garner any kind of specific reaction out of people. And that's where you find, like you said, this is what to inquire within is, and ultimately to find that voice and inhabit it and express what is specific and unique to yourself with the world is the one gift that nobody can copy. And it's right. What we need from everybody right now.
Yeah, I mean, man, if people do the work during this time, I am hopeful. I consider myself a, realistic optimist. Yeah. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we can come out of this and make some real shifts, make some real shift to capitalism, make some real shifts to globalization, and just realize that we are all in this together. Not only in an idea, but in our actions.
Yeah, yeah. Other than all the things that you're kind of doing to get the word out about the book, I mean, what does your day-to-day look like? Like, how are you using this, death of the ego and this slowdown to, engage in the own process that you advise other people to do?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I really think that this book is, once you create a piece of art, it's separate from you. Mm-hmm. It has a life of its own now. So it actually is telling me to do what I've been telling other people to do.
Yeah.
It's telling me to inquire within, and so I've been actually doing that. I have been promoting still, which has felt sometimes great and sometimes horrible, but I've tried to remain authentic the whole way. But I think I'm almost through the first part of the race. That race is going to be done, and it's done on Saturday because Saturday is the last day for the bestsellers list. Which, by the way, the bestsellers list. Oh, look, yeah. It's like, oh, I wanted the bestsellers list. It's like, who gives a shit, man? I just want people to.
I mean, it's the ultimate, check the ego box thing, because truly it doesn't mean anything. It's such a, just a trophy that you put on the shelf.
I know. I don't know why I got fixated on this thing. And it's like, yeah, it's just ridiculous. So I've kind of let go of that. And I just really want people to experience the art. So, but I am going to be done with that part very soon. And I was just telling Andriana, my girlfriend, this morning, I was saying, one of the things that I wanted to do was start to create a schedule every day where we were actually, hey babe, see, it's like real. Things are happening in the background. Our television station is raw as fuck, bro. So, I just want to actually make a list of 50 things that maybe we would want to do on a daily basis that we wouldn't usually have time for, whether that's painting or a breathwork session or yoga or us writing a poem together, a love poem, and then sharing it together, or us cooking something new that we haven't cooked, or us taking a run together with social distancing with everyone else, or just there's a list, a long list that we could come up with, listening to a podcast, listening to an audiobook, watching a great movie. And then every night I want to sit down and I want us to come up with our schedule for the next day. Time to be creative on our own, but ways that we can use this time to incubate our own personal evolution so that we come out on the other side of this better than how we came in. So that's the first thing I would say. And then the second thing that I'd say is, you know, I did something last night that I've never done before. And I've been doing the lives now for a week and a half because and by the way, thank you for having me on again and sharing me with your audience. I love you so much, man. One of the things I've been doing is this is my virtual book tour.
Yeah.
I have no other way to get the word out. So I said, all right, well, let's do it this way. But last night, bro, and this was cool, I fucking turned on my own live and I started just taking like people's requests. And so they would pop up. And I did about like 6 or 7 conversations with people. And 3 or 4 of the people started reading their own poems. And I started giving them feedback on their poems. And it was beautiful, Rich. It was actually like a virtual poetry workshop that I never intended to do. And it all of a sudden made my community, who felt so far away, at least on my Instagram, other than messages, which still feels far away. I said, wow, I talked to someone in Arizona. I talked to someone in Dallas. I talked to someone in Hawaii. I talked to someone in New York. A woman answered because she requested by accident and she was in the bathtub.
Wow.
And she was like, I'm in the bathtub. And we started laughing hysterically. And then everybody was laughing on the thing. And, you know, and I just kind of thought, I need to find ways to evolve as an artist in this situation as well. And I hope everyone is going to be willing to look at their lives and see how we can become better versions of ourselves under the circumstances that we're in.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's like a really cool story, but also a more impactful experience for the audience and the people that you brought into that experience than it would be if you were like reading from your book at a Barnes and Noble somewhere. You know
Totally.
what I mean? So just because the book tour is virtual doesn't mean that it can't be more impactful. You know, listen, there's nothing like, you know, anybody who's listening or watching right now, there is nothing like seeing InQ on stage in a beautiful theater, like doing what he does best. And, you know, once this thing is passed and you know, you start to do these live shows, I encourage everybody to, you know, seek him out live, because it really is it's a life-changing experience. But short of being able to do that, like being able to use these tools to connect with people, I mean, it's what a privilege and a gift, you know, to be able to do that. We could be in a state where we couldn't do that, and we're feeling more isolated than ever. So again, it's about shifting our perspective and looking through a, you know, a lens of possibility as opposed to, you know, victimhood and pain.
And then I want to say one more thing. Sorry, go ahead, man.
Go ahead.
No, please.
No, finish your thought, because I was going to shift gears.
Yeah, the only last thing I'd say to everyone out there is, and this is, I'm giving the advice that I'm working on myself, is like this sweatshirt. It's Keep Loving. And it's a poem that I have that's in the book. And we were going to print a bunch of these up, and then we didn't get a chance because of everything that happened. And we were going to sell them as merch, and we were going to sell Inquire Within sweatshirts as well. And I was trying to figure out how I could give back. And that's the other part of it, is figuring out how you can be of service and support to other people who are not as fortunate. And so one of the things that now my manager and I, Kevin, were talking about last night is we want to figure out a way to print up a bunch of these and then sell them, and then just give all of the proceeds away to people who are being hit economically from this, or the nurses and the doctors trying to get, at least here in Los Angeles, you know, if we can donate to get people more PPE, you know, just something that we can do so we can feel like we're also giving back. So I'd say those 3 elements are kind of going to be the pillars of me trying to inquire within during this time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So it's just, right now it's just you and your girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
In the apartment. So one of the things that's come up with a lot of people is you know, there's so much opportunity in like being in close proximity with somebody that you love, but that's a, you know, potentially, you know, delicate situation. Like when you're not used to spending that much time without the ability to go and like have your own space and all of that, like a lot of people are running into relationship conflict because they're forced to be, you know, in each other's faces like all the time. And I'm interested in how you're dealing with that, which is human. I mean, I don't know, you know, like, you're locked up with somebody for a while, you're gonna have to, like, you know, deal with that, which is difficult.
Look, there's literally nowhere for us to go, bro. Like, because we were looking for a house and we never found a place that we loved beforehand. And so we're in our apartment. It's a 1-bedroom apartment, and it was feeling a little bit cramped before we were quarantined. And so certainly, you know, it's been a transition, but we're actually doing amazing because I'm in a really, really great relationship. I feel super, super lucky. She said to me the other day, she said, we've been together over 2 years, and she said that she has found more emotional space with me during the quarantine than she has in the past. Because I think sometimes in relationships, we tend to mirror each other's moods. And, and it's almost like she was forced to face the part of her that was doing that because of the quarantine, and she just stopped doing it. And if I'm stressed out, for example, I don't want the people around me to be stressed out too, you know? But I can't always, like, ignore the fact that I'm stressed out. You know, I am just going to be stressed out, and I have to deal with that to the best of my ability. But I don't want the other people around me to have to mirror my mood. That's codependence. And so I think we're learning a lot about that and other things. But one thing that I am concerned about is people who are in domestic violence relationships during this time. I'm really, really concerned about them. My heart goes out to them because then being quarantined is like a prison. And then the other thing, man, is what we were talking about earlier, which is, you know, if people are really depressed or really lonely, you know, and they feel isolated. And so the only thing I would say to anybody who's listening is if you feel that way, just please, please, please call one of the hotlines, or you just know that you are not alone, you know, and we all have to find a way to build bridges rather than walls right now.
Yeah, 100%. Cool, man. Well, I think that's a good place to put a pin in it for now.
Great.
How do you feel?
I feel good. Do you want me to do a poem or something?
Yeah, that would be good. Let's take us out with a poem. Okay,
cool. All right.
And let me just say before you start, or while you're figuring out what to say, I'm sort of scanning the comments and questions that are coming in. There's some people that you know maybe aren't aware that we did a podcast. So you guys, if you're digging on NQ, you should check out the podcast that we did recently, and it's up on YouTube also. And then we also filmed separately a poem that Q did, and that's up on the YouTube channel as well. And of course, the book Inquire Within, which you can find online at your favorite independent bookseller or Amazon. So go for it.
Thank you, bro. How do we talk about the problems without feeding them? If we ignore them, we most likely keep repeating them. If we explore them, we run the risk of reinforcing them. So how then do we get down to the source of them? You will always find the evidence for what you choose to believe. You will always find the evidence for what you choose to believe. Starve your pain, find your ego. Starve your ego, find your beast. Starve your beast, find your truth. Find your truth, find your peace. You will always find the evidence for what you choose to believe. You will always find the evidence for what you choose to believe. Starve your pain, find your ego. Starve your ego, find your beast. Starve your beast, find your truth. Find your truth, find your peace. You will always find the evidence for what you choose to believe. You will always find the evidence for what you choose to believe. You will always find the evidence for what you choose to believe. You will always find the evidence for what you choose to believe. So if you don't like your story, don't believe it, then leave. What if Martin Luther King Jr. was into video games? What if Gandhi liked to Netflix and chill? What if Einstein was on Prozac? What if Buddha was too stressed to sit still? What if Mother Teresa counted likes instead of counting hugs? What if Cleopatra was a supermodel who spent her nights in clubs? What if Socrates was a contestant on The Bachelorette? What if Rumi was in advertising? Would I buy his shit? What if Rosa Parks missed the bus and couldn't take a lift? What if Bob Marley popped barbiturates instead of puffing spliffs? What if TMZ had followed JFK? What if Lincoln was a backup center in the NBA? What if John Lennon sang Imagine on American Idol? Would they want to add a beat, get a feature, change the title? What if Muhammad Ali had a reality show? What if I got my house painted by Picasso or Van Gogh? What if Churchill had a podcast or Disney liked to scroll? What if Shakespeare drove an Uber with Thou Knowest I Was Home? What if Dolly was a DJ or Tupac never rapped? What if Malcolm was your ex or Mandela made the latest app? What if Che Guevara had a clothing line or Frida Kahlo made the logos for their marketing team? What if Jane Austen wrote scripts for shitty sitcoms or Steve Jobs did social media targeting for all your moms? What if Bruce Lee taught Zumba, not Jeet Kune? What if he didn't ever do what he was destined to do? What if our heroes aren't demigods to look up to? What if our heroes are our heroes because they're just like me and you? What if I just sit inside this room and wait to die? What if I try to change the world and fail? At least I tried. I could numb myself 100 ways to hypnotize my soul. So much unfulfilled potential, you would think it was my goal. What are you doing with your time? Yours and mine. What if our next genius artist, activist, or inventor grows up to want to be an Instagram influencer? What are you doing with your time? Yours and mine. You don't want to have regrets for all the years you've left behind. And every year that passes, someone's coming up behind. They're here to take your place in a never-ending line. So what's your higher purpose? And is it worth your grind? It's going to take some hard work. You have to burn before you shine. Are your thoughts and your dreams and your actions all aligned? What are you doing with your
Nice. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
I love that. That might be my favorite. There's so many like crazy zingers in that. It's like, what if Rumi was in advertising? Would you buy shit? Like, or Lincoln in the NBA? Like, are you kidding me? So good.
Thanks,
I love
man.
you, brother. Thank
I love you too.
for sharing today.
Yeah,
wishing you
man.
well. Stay safe. And I'm here for you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I'm here
Again,
for you too. And thank you for continuing.
Yeah.
And thank you for everyone who's listening. And just, Rich, man, thank you for continuing to spread the light, man. You just got such an amazing heart, man. And I'm your friend and I'm your fan, brother.
Cool. Well, IRL soon, my friend, when this passes.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good, man.
All right, cool.
Later, everybody.
Talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Peace out.